Hello, hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Um, I had a thought in my head, and I do want to make this quick because I'm actually on my break. But I had a thought. I had a thought about, I was thinking about the whole single mother, single father thing, thinking about what it means to raise children. Now, I have no children of my own, but I do have a lot of friends, family that do have children. Um, Unfortunately, most of the people that I know don't have any children. Don't have that aren't married, aren't with their significant other, or aren't with the father or mother of their child. And this is an issue. Okay, absolutely appreciate that. Appreciate that, Hatch. Aren't with the mother or father uh, of their child. And I put a post on Facebook talking about how I wanted to do things God's way. I don't want to have children before I'm married. And I know a lot of people feel that way. Um, for a lot of people, that was their intention initially, but it didn't sort of happen that way, right? Um, I think the post, let me go ahead and read the post because it's pretty, I would say it's pretty important. What I said in my post was the following. I said, there's no bigger smile you'll see on a child's face than the smile a child makes when they see their mother and father happy together. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes babies. And it made me think about something about paternal ownership and paternal stake in a child's future when it comes to black men, ADOS black men specifically. I was thinking about the idea of the black father prior to slavery, whether that's being a native to North America or being brought over from Africa. And the role of the father, the man, the patriarch, so on and so forth in the family, the crucial uh, part in the family dynamic. We live in a time where um, women are enabled to run families on their own with the help of the government. Let's be honest. It's a substitute for the man, substitute for the father of the child. And it's this false narrative that they can do it all on their own, that they're doing it all on their own. But that support is there by the safety net of the government. So, what happens if the government pulls back that safety net? Do children starve? Do we truly see what mothers and women are made of when it comes to take care of themselves, let alone their children? And if that safety net is pulled back, will that urge women to be with or rekindle the relationship with the father, for better or for worse? Will it cause families to stick together? Will it cause women to consider heavily and more appropriately who they lie with and who they're willing to have a child by? Now, we live in a society where women are making more money, they're able to be more self sufficient, and a lot of women are choosing careers over families initially. And when they get to their 30s, mid 30s, their biological clock is screaming at them, hey, you want a baby. I'm glad you're doing your thing, you're working, but what's up with that baby though? Your eggs are getting old, and let's make it happen. So they look at themselves and their position. They're like, well, I've worked hard. I can take care of myself. Let's go ahead and have a baby. So oftentimes they may try to find a husband, but if that fails, they say, you know what? I'm in a financial position where I can have a child. So I'm going to have this child. It just depends on who am I going to have this child with. Now, I want to say, I'm not a woman. It'd be great if I had a woman on here. I'd like to think ideally they would choose a mate or a father of a child that is a decent person. And sometimes that's the case. Oftentimes, we do hear stories of women literally just choosing men to be sperm donors. Don't really care about the character or the position of the man. They just want the man's sperm. So it almost looks like men in that case, when it comes to women in late 20s or 30s or over, they look at men as brood mares, or not brood mares, but bed bugs, black men as bed bugs. So this whole thing goes into my understanding of the history. If we look at ADOS black men for, well, since the inception of the country, they have never really truly had ownership of their children. They've never truly had a stake in their children. Let's go through history really briefly, really quickly, because my break's almost up. If we look at history, the first slaves, which again, there's some that were indigenous here, and then there were some brought over from Africa. The ones that were brought over from Africa, for the first maybe 50, 55 years, they were exclusively male. They weren't bringing over women. So for 55 years, you had nothing but men toiling the land, right? And they found it to be easier. They were losing so much slaves over the boat ride here that they figured, you know what, it's better that we just breed them. So during the 55 years, they decided to do something even before deciding to breed them. So for 55 years, the boat ride was cool. Now, what happens is they start bringing over black women. They start enslaving African women and bringing them over here. However, initially, they were not brought over to breed with the black men, but to be concubines for the white slave owners. So the black woman's initial inception into the country was not to be a field toiler, but actually to be a concubine for the white slave owners. At which point they realized, well, it would be easier to breed these people. So what happens is the black woman's position at that point becomes that of a breeder, and they start having black men and black women breed to create offspring, to create children. And then the rules were changed, the laws were changed to say that this type of slavery, any child born into slavery was a slave forever. And that's what this chattel slavery, that's how a lot of it differs from any of the other slavery. But take a look at this. When the child's born, the child is not the property of the man that sired the child. Not the property. Not the property of the woman. So you have black men that were toiling throughout history, throughout slavery, and then would have children. And often cases, it could have been their child. Often cases, it could have been the master's child. Often cases, it could have been uh, a couple of the slaves' child. There's no way to know. It was almost like breeding. Unfortunately, I hate to use this term, breeding how you would breed a dog, or you have a stray dog and then has multiple colorful litter of puppies. You're not quite sure who it comes from. You'd be like, well, my dog is black, my other dog's white, but why is there a brown dog and a gray dog? Puppies, litter. So you have a situation like that. So there's never been a sense of ownership. But what happened? Black men in those situations, they helped raise the children that weren't theirs for such a long time. They never truly felt a sense of ownership. And they would have unofficial marriages. And even in those situations, at any time, that woman could be taken by the slave master, or, you know, they could be bred or sold off to another slave camp, or so on and so forth. So there was never a very tenuous. It was a tenuous relationship at best between the black man and the black woman, but even more shaky, the relationship between the black man and the child. Sorry, I'm going to have to be really quick. But essentially, that's the case. So you have that in slavery. Black men have never truly had ownership of their children. Now you exit slavery and you go into Reconstruction era. You have free slaves and you have black men now finally being able to have ownership over their children. So for 400 and some odd years, black men had no ownership or control over their children, except to maybe teach them how to do the physical manual labor that they do or keep them in line. That's it. More of a guard role than actual father. But, obviously they did what they could to instill values into the child and so on and so forth. So with a situation like that, you have the Reconstruction era and you have black men and black women finally out of physical slavery, we'll say that, and they're making it together. They're struggling, definitely struggling, but they're together as a family. And that was the first time that the black man ever had a stake and ever, I would say, truly felt like he had control over his own destiny, control over his own children, control over his environment, over his own family. Prior to that, he didn't have control to protect and take care of his own family. And then you have situations where you get to the point where we move further into the future and you have nice black families. Then you have situations like welfare coming up. We go further in the future, we have welfare where the black woman is incentivized to essentially push away the black man from the home. Back then, it was hard for black men to get jobs. And if they did have jobs, it wasn't really enough to take care of really any kids, a family. And that did a huge damaging of the psyche of a man because we understood manhood as one aspect of manhood as being a provider. So that did do a lot of damage. And you have the state and the government incentivizing women. Hey, we'll help you raise these children. We'll help you eat, keep a roof over your head. But there can be no man in this home. There's have to be no man, no nothing. So oftentimes you had a father faced with a decision. Do I stay here, make these meager wages, and barely have enough to eat? Maybe some of my kids die from hunger, lack of medicine, things of that nature. Or is it better for me to leave and allow them to get government assistance so that my kids can eat? I love my kids. I want to stay, but the government's offering what I make in 2 months or 3 months. They're offering, or they're offering 3 times what I make, and that'll help my family. You have stories like Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and a lot of people looked at that song like this guy's just some dude, having children everywhere and never really being around. But it really was a commentary on things like this. So you had some men that voluntarily left so their children and their families could survive and eat. You'd have that story of, your daddy's gone searching for work. That was an excuse there, or a story that's told. You'd have a situation where the mothers would push the fathers out of the household because, they cared about their children over the relationship that they had with the father. Now, sometimes they would sneak the fathers back in, but they would actually send people to these homes and these houses to make sure there was no sign of a male around. And if there was a sign, they would cut the benefits from the women, the mothers, and the children. So that had a horrible impact on the black community. So we went from slavery to after slavery, and we're even seeing the same thing today, even more so, that the government has incentivized the dismantling of the black family, i.e., by removal of the father and the father's parental rights and parental roles in their family. So when we look at the apathy, if it's there, or we see a lot of fathers not taking care of their children, which there's no excuse for that. We understand that um, not everybody chooses the right person to have children with. A lot of people believe they did choose the right person to have children with. But in any event, we see a lot of fathers outside the home. We see a lot of bad choices made, and we see a lot of choices that are being promoted by society. But maybe we should just look deep at the history of if black men truly felt like they had a stake in raising their child and actually felt like they had ownership and parental rights over their children. We look at today, we look at the family courts and how that works. We look at men that are have children with women that already have pre-existing children, or men that have children with their girlfriends and they think they're going to make it work and it doesn't work out, and boom, that man's on child support. We have these in the 1994 crime bill. There's I don't know if it's called the Deadbeat Act or something like that. They take away your driver's license. They take away your ability to fly, travel internationally. They take away so many rights if one has back child support. But how does one get out of the hole of being beholden to the government if one cannot seek work and have the availability to navigate, travel, and not be hindered to look for work? Could it be that every judge, per that 1994 crime bill, gets a percent of that child support in their pensions? I think a lot of people didn't know that. I just found that out. I think that's despicable. I think the racket of child support is horrible because before the mother gets their money, the government gets theirs. And yes, it is a way to keep minorities under control of the government. Forever in debt, people's stimulus, a lot of people didn't get their stimulus because of something like this. Now, does that make them deadbeats because they have back child support? I don't think so. In some cases, there are deadbeats, but to say that most of these men are deadbeats would be, I think that would be unfair. A lot of folks needed that stimulus. But I digress. The whole point of this stream was to ask a question. Are your children really your children, brother? When you have to ask for, when you have to fight for just 50% of the rights of your children in court, 50% isn't just automatically granted to you. You have to fight for a percentage of rights to your children. All rights go to the mother. You literally have to prove the mother was an ingrate, a demon, a drug addict, a fallacious woman, and even then, that may not be enough. You have to prove that you've been supporting the child. And if you have receipts, then you can negotiate your child support with the court. But that's another situation where the court's involved between you and your woman, black man, ADOS black man. So the question becomes, do you own your children? Do you have a stake in their destiny? I think throughout history, we're shown that black men's parental rights have been hindered and been subverted by the United States government. Now, to the fathers that are able to navigate and avoid those issues, excellent. But we have a society that enables single motherhood. We have a society that promotes government assistance. We have a society that dismantles marriage. Oh, it promotes marriage, but dismantles marriage at the same time. We have a society that doesn't have equal child care laws. We have a society that makes money off of putting a man on a debt racket, even if he's been supporting his child. At any given point, that woman can say, "This ain't enough." Go to the court, file for child support. Often cases, you'll hear a lot of men didn't even get the first appear to court notice. By the time they hear about it, it's the final word, and they've lost the right to negotiate. You have a situation where the government promotes fathers not be a part of their children's lives. You got a situation where a woman wants child support from you and then turns around and says, when you don't want to be bothered with the situation, when it's too much to bear, when it's bogged you down, when it's ruined your life, they turn around and tell you you don't care about your child because you're not spending time with them, disregarding the fact that your wages are being garnished because she feels she's not getting enough money, that she's being subsidized from the government. She wants to call you a bad father. She wants to tell your child you don't care about them, but you're working hard. That that money gets taken out before you even get there. How much control do you have over the destiny of your child? When you, where it took half of you and half of her to make that child, bring that child into this world, you have now become just a sperm donor in the eyes of the law. You've been looked at as just a bed buck for the entire history, except for a few pockets of history in the United States. Dysfunction, dysfunction, dysfunction. How does one protect themselves from something like this? Because it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're uh, a billionaire, millionaire, you make 20,000 a year, 50,000, whatever. It can happen to any man. It's the great equalizer. But to you, black men, I say, are your children really your children, brother? Just a thought I had. Real talk, real people. Uh, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me how you feel in the comments. I know all men feel this. All men go through these things. I just wanted to take a special focus and take a look at black men and the history. Is showing how there hasn't really been a feeling of ownership a father has over their children throughout history. And you know what? It is determined. There was a study that came out that said black men are some of the most active fathers in their child's life. So, with data backing it up, us knowing that, us having to deal with all these forces, maybe it is all of the above that makes us want to be more present and the best fathers we can be when we have the time with our children. Maybe it's all the obstacles that really make us try hard. But should we have to go through all that just to be present and share in the joys and the heartaches uh, of raising children? Great comment. Partly why I want to wait for the right girl to have a child in case stuff goes south. I want to know she isn't petty about things you spoke about. Absolutely. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, that's Asian, wherever you're from, purple, alien, reptilian. Um, all men feel this, right? We all want to make sure we pick right. And I spoke to my father about this, and he said, all you can do is go on faith. Try to pick the right person. Don't be afraid to put them through a gauntlet. If they can't take it, that's fine. That's not the right one. But you want to be sure. because a lot of people don't understand when you bring a child into this world, they're half you, half that person. And that dictates their life. The intelligence of a child is an amalgamation, the potential intelligence of a child is an amalgamation of your potential and your wife's potential or your husband's potential. And that propels a child. So, if you decide to lay with somebody that isn't really contributing to society, doesn't have a good foundational background, spiritually sound, then you're really doing your child a deficit. So, men, protect your seed, women, protect your wombs, make the right choices. It's okay. It's okay. Take your time because you'll be so happy when you found somebody that you can love and trust and you can work through any situation with. Don't make it harder than it has to be. I got to get back on the clock. All right, this has been Real Talk, Real People. Peace out, everyone. Be safe. We're in here. And as always, keep it real.